Anyway, all right, so tonight we are back to talking about how to stay in a secure attachment, how to stay out of intensity and stay in intimacy. And remember last week we talked about what it means to be the 4 kinds of attachment and what they are, and they come from your childhood. 3 kinds of attachment are insecure. They aren't solid. They feel funny. They aren't. They're a part of intensity instead of intimacy. And your attachment happens in childhood. And what happens is this: in childhood, there are 4 types of attachment. One being that you are. Oh, I lost my paper. One being that you are securely attached. Securely attached means you had good enough parents who were there enough for you, gave you what you needed enough that you could be predicted, it was predictable, and you grew up in that state. An insecure attachment is one of 3 different types. I'm going to use my explanation of them right now, but the first one is dependent. A dependent attachment means that I think you're really good and I don't know what I'm doing. So I depend on you to get me through life, basically. And so basically that was a place where there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. Sometimes your parents were there for you and sometimes they weren't. And it creates this anxiety because you couldn't, nothing was predictable, okay? The second kind of insecure attachment is avoidant. Avoidant is usually happens when there's a high degree of abuse or abandonment. So that I learn as a child, I can't count on somebody else. One of the ways that happens is when I become necessary for my parents or for my caretaker's benefit. So anything where my caretaker or my parent relies on me to meet their needs, I can become avoidant in that place, okay? In other words, these are people who, needy people feel gloomy, and I just want to run away and hide. It's better not to be around them than to have somebody glomming onto me. That's an avoidant type of person. And that's because my parent was using me to get their needs met instead of them meeting my needs, okay? The third type of insecure attachment is counter-dependent. Counter-dependent people have been probably massively abused in some form or have lived in massive abuse. The abuse didn't have to be specifically to you, but if you were witnessing it, or if your home was full of some type of abuse, physical, emotional, spiritual, sexual, some type of abuse, then you grew up fearful and anxious and just skipped out on everybody. Nobody's safe. It's just gotta be me and God. And that's a counter-dependent kind of insecure attachment, okay? So what happens in insecure attachment is, it happens in my limbic system. My limbic system is the part of my brain back here, in the very back. They call it your reptilian brain. It's your fight or flight place, okay? It is the place that says, I either have to run and hide, or I'm gonna fight this, okay? It's low on your brainstem because when information comes in, this part of your brain lights up and gets you ready for either running or fighting whatever the danger is. You're born with that part of your brain. And your limbic system in childhood is very alive and well, okay? And one of the ways your limbic system works in childhood is by labeling, okay? If I have to label a person, not a behavior. This person's bad, this person's good, okay? It's all black and white. There's not a whole lot of room for abstract thinking because you just can't think that way yet. You don't have the brain power to think that way yet, okay? So, and in fact, if something's wrong in my home that has to be good, labeled good, I've got to be the bad, okay? I can't live imagining or thinking my mother is bad and dangerous. That just won't work. So I think I'm bad and dangerous, my mother is good. Regardless, she may be an awful person, or she may have awful behaviors. I'm going to label her as good, and therefore I become bad. We talked about trauma bonds and how we start labeling all this as love in a trauma bond. So we label the person, not the behavior, okay? He's a bad guy. He's a bad man. She's a good person, okay? She's a good mommy. And it has really nothing to do with their actual behaviors. It's just the labeling we do because it makes it easier to understand I got to run or I got to fight. if something's not safe. And we also become pretty fearful of intimacy, because in that labeling place, I'm afraid you're going to find out my label. My label's bad at the sacrificing of mommy's label is good. So my label's bad, and I'm afraid you're going to find it out. And if you find it out, you're going to run away and abandon me. So I live in this place of intensity and insecure attachment and fear and arousal. And that's how I live out of childhood, okay? In secure attachment, my frontal lobes are involved. My frontal lobes are where logic, clear thinking, forward thinking, forethought, abstract thinking, the ability to separate a person from their behavior, all happens, okay? The ability to separate me from my behavior also happens in my frontal lobes. By the way, your frontal lobes are not fully mature and developed until you're 25 years old. 25. So frontal lobes don't even start kind of really, getting into a place of development until you're in your teens, when you can start abstract thinking. I can think past black and white. There is a gray here. And I can start abstract thinking. And your frontal lobes are necessary for a secure attachment in adulthood, okay? So what happens is, oftentimes we get into a place where we're learning secure attachment and we're securely attaching, and then some stress comes along. And it's just like Claire, that sweet little girl that we were looking at a few minutes ago. She's 2 and she's walking, and something comes by and she falls to the ground or drops to the floor and crawls, okay? Her secure attachment is that walking place where she's trying to learn how, and something stressful comes along and, oh brother, it's just easier to crawl, okay? That's an insecure attachment. And under stress or anxiety or patterns of behavior with other people who are insecurely attached, we drop our secure attachment of walking and get back on crawling. And that's why you can be going, wow, how come I'm back here again? Well, it's because there's some kind of stress in your life. And so it's just easier to crawl, we think. Okay, the more you walk, which if you think about it, walking in itself is a series of stopping yourself from falling. That's what a step is. You step and catch yourself before you fall, and step and catch yourself before you fall, and step and catch yourself before you fall, which is really interesting to think about. As you are learning secure attachment, that's what you're doing. And the more you practice secure attachment, the easier it is to walk, the less time you spend crawling on the floor in an insecure attachment, okay? All right, so I want to tell you about a situation that happened to me in my life. I believe I was a freshman in high school. It seemed like I was younger than that, but based on the card that was involved, I must have been a freshman in high school. I had a kitten named Misty. She was a gray Persian kitten, sweet, precious little kitten. And she decided she liked sleeping on my sister's engine, warm engine, at night, or when she was cold. So my sister had her car, and Misty would sleep on the engine. Typically, Misty would jump down when my sister got in the car and get off the engine. This day, I was outside in the front yard, and my sister turned on her Camaro, her car, and I heard the most horrific scream from my kitten. I ran to the driveway, and just as I saw my sweet little Misty kitten drop out of the engine, and she was flopping on the driveway, torn up, just you can imagine, chewed up but still alive. And instinctively, I grabbed her, and I grabbed hold of her, and as I grabbed hold of her, she tore into me. I remember what her little eyes looked like and how afraid she was. And she just clawed into me. and tore into me. And I remember the moment I stopped and I had a decision to make. Do I drop her or do I let her claw me? It was awful. And I think a lot about Misty when it comes to a statement I want to tell you about becoming an emotional matador and having secure attachment in your life. You guys ready for this? Hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. Misty, my cat, was in absolute horrific pain, and she was hurting me. Hurting people hurt people. You know, I want you to think about someone in your life who you have a lot of drama with, a lot of painful issues that happen, a lot of intensity, where you may even fear being vulnerable with this person. Or you may be afraid that if you're vulnerable, they'll abandon you, or they'll swallow you up and take you over, okay? Or it may be that you don't have as much conflict because you just live in a doormat state where you're not rocking the boat, you're not telling anybody, you know, you're not giving your opinion on anything. It's just a yes, yes, yes kind of place. And I want you to think of that person. Put that person in your mind. And on your paper, I want you to have two columns. Column A is going to be the person's labels. What you label that person during a disagreement, during the drama, during the intensity. And column B is going to be the person's behavior. Okay, so let's say I say Scott's a jerk. I used to say that one a lot. Scott's a jerk was what I labeled my husband, and it had to do with these certain behaviors. Okay, he would do X, he would do Y, he would do Z, a little bit of A and B, and those behaviors said he's a jerk. Okay, I also want you to put yourself in column A and B. The labels you have for yourself and the behaviors you have when you're labeled that way. Okay, for instance, you know, my label of I'm an old woman does not go over well with my son, but that label to me says I'm not getting it on the internet. I feel too old to even learn this stuff. You know, my way of doing social media has come and gone. You know, that's what being an old woman means to me. Okay, so I want you to do two columns. Your labels of yourself and that other person that you're thinking of, and your behaviors of yourself and that other person that you're thinking of. Okay. Doesn't have to be exhaustive. Now I want you to notice something. On the label side, she's such a jerk. She's, you know, so needy. She's, you know, really like, whoa, anger intensity, bitch. Whatever it is you have labeled, those come out of a place of intensity. Those labels come out of a place of your limbic system. Okay, they come out of a place of fight or flight. Okay. The behavior column is a label for intimacy. Behavior is up here in your frontal lobes. Behavior is about how this person is behaving, but they aren't their behavior. Or you're behaving a certain way, but you aren't your behavior. You're much more than that. Okay? Behavior speaks about intimacy. Label speaks about intensity. Okay? Okay. So now I want you to do something really, really important. I want you to choose goodwill. Choose goodwill. The choice of goodwill is something you have to do up here in your frontal lobes. It can't be back here. It's a decision you make about this person when you're looking at their labels and their behaviors. Okay? It's a decision you make and you decide right now. Okay? It's a decision that you decide, this is it, this is the day I choose goodwill. I look at Scott, my husband, I see his behaviors, I know what I've labeled him, but I'm going to choose goodwill, which becomes my label of him, even when I don't like those behaviors. I do the same thing for me. Okay? I choose goodwill for myself, even when I don't like my behaviors. Okay? That's a done deal today. Now, what happens if you have somebody who you can't choose goodwill for? What happens if somebody in your life their behaviors are so egregious you cannot choose goodwill? Okay? Because goodwill chooses intimacy. Okay? What you're going to choose is neutrality. You're not going to choose intensity. You're going to choose neutrality. That's the third choice, neutrality. So let's say, and this is where Jesus says, can a good tree produce bad fruit? Or can a bad tree produce good fruit? No, you know them by their fruit. Fruit is behavior. Okay? So if the person's behavior is not sustainable with a relationship, let's say they are verbally abusive, or having an affair, or watching porn, or I don't know, pick it. A continuous behavior that they're having that isn't going to be conducive with being able to give them goodwill, okay? Then you put them in the choice of neutral. Okay? You don't go to intensity. What we usually try and do is go to intensity. We usually try to make it about intensity. I'll change them. I'll make them be different. I will, get in their business. I will create this intense place as if that's going to work. Intensity doesn't work. In fact, it only thumbtacks their negative behavior, and you get beat up in the process. We'll look at that in a minute in the word. But you can choose neutral. You don't want to choose intensity. Remember, intensity is a wildfire. Intensity is destructive to you and everybody else in your path. You're not going to choose intensity for this person. You're going to choose neutrality. Okay? Jesus said it this way. If they don't receive you in the town, you shake the dust off your feet. You just move on. You don't stand there and get into a drama with them. You don't stand there and get into some kind of scenario with them like you're going to be able to change them. No, you shake the dust off your feet and move on. Okay. So it's either intensity you don't want to do. It's a wildfire. By the way, it causes your heart attacks. It causes all kinds of, it causes cortisol levels to spike. You don't want to do intensity. Save intensity for the robber coming through your door that you have to grab the gun to shoot. Then you can have all the intensity you want. Okay? Otherwise, for people in your life, you are either going to go neutral or you're going to choose goodwill. Okay? Now, their behaviors haven't changed a bit. Nothing about them has changed. Only your heart and your brain head knowledge has changed. You've moved to frontal lobes instead of living in the drama and the intensity of your limbic system. Okay? So you choose goodwill. Okay? Now, after I've decided goodwill or neutral, okay, the next thing I need to do is to become an emotional matador. You're going to become an emotional matador. What does that look like? Okay, if you think about a matador, you have this guy in a ring with an 1,100-pound, bull who is in massive pain, furious, angry, coming straight at him. Okay, snorting, snarling, angry, coming straight at this matador. okay? And a matador has three choices. He can stand straight in the way and face on, head on with this bull. Not going to end well, okay? He can turn and run in avoidance, and he's going to get chased and maybe taken over by the bull. Or third option, he's going to step aside and let the bull go by, okay? Being an emotional matador means that you take your red cape, you notice this is going on, and what you decide to do up here in your frontal lobes is step aside and let that bull go by. Let those behaviors you're not liking, like that angry, snarling person in your life, let what they're complaining about you, it's not sticking to you, you're not in the way of it, you let it go by. You just watch it go by. Okay? That's what being an emotional matador is. You do that in goodwill. Because I know, just like when I grabbed hold of Misty, my kitten, I knew she was hurting so bad she didn't know what she was doing to me. And I could hold who she is, even though she is clawing me and creating a bloody, shredded mess of my hands. Okay? And in goodwill, what you do as an emotional matador is you know the person is hurting really bad, can't handle the behavior, and you step aside, you step away from what's going on. So you're not the target of that, okay? And what you do is you decide this. There's nothing good coming out of your mouth if you're in your limbic system. If your heart rate is above 90, nothing good comes out of your mouth. I promise. Okay. If your heart rate is above 90, you are in fight or flight. All of your and in fight or flight, all of your ability to reason, think through something, come up with a better understanding or thought process is gone. That's why when you can be in an argument or a disagreement, and then you walk away from it and go, "Oh man, why didn't I say that?" Because your frontal lobes were turned off and your limbic system was turned on. When you are in, the really good thing about a limbic system frontal lobe problem is this, or scenario is this. They can't be both on at the same time. They are an on-off switch. If I am in limbic system, I am not in frontal lobe. I've lost my ability to think clearly, to rationalize, to do what I need to do, and I'm just in fight or flight. In the same way, if I get into frontal lobe, thought, clarity, thinking clearly, rationalizing, abstract thinking, my limbic system is turned off, okay? It is your parasympathetic system and your sympathetic nervous system. They're an on-off switch, okay? So that's really good news, because as an emotional matador, what you do is you're going to turn off your limbic system and turn on your frontal lobe system, okay? So when the bull's in the what I say to myself is this, okay, when the bull's not in the pen and things have calmed down, we can talk then, okay? My limbic system's activated, nothing good is going to come out of my mouth. I'm going to go potty, okay? Write that down. I have to go potty. 5 words. I have to go potty, okay? I have found those 5 words I've used them with 5-year-olds in their own lives. I've used them with 80-year-olds. I have to go potty. Why those 5 words? Because number one, nobody argues with you that you don't have to go potty. Everybody accepts that. Number 2, it's neutral. It isn't, I'm saying, I'm abandoning you because you're acting like a jerk. It's neutral. I just have to go potty. It effectively times out the situation, okay? But, I have found most marital therapy says, ask for a timeout. I don't think that works. Because at the point where you're in limbic system or the other person's in limbic system, they aren't going to give you a timeout, okay? But they will allow you to go potty or accept that you're going potty, okay? I have to go potty. And the really cool thing about going potty is God goes with you. You get to have God in the potty. See, he goes right in there with you. And now you're in a safe place where you can turn off your limbic system and turn on your frontal lobes. When you go potty, you're going to take a big, deep breath. When you flood your brain with oxygen, you naturally turn off your limbic system. You know, that part of your brain goes, wait, she's flooding my brain with oxygen. She must not need me to be fighting or fleeing. You naturally turn on your frontal lobes. Big, deep breaths. Also, by the way, did you know there's a place in your brain called the God Center, which actually lights up when you're talking to God? Yeah. Isn't that crazy? They can see it. Same place in everybody. Light up that baby in your brain. Start talking to God. You can tell God all you want. You can tell God about how you can start out with labeling behaviors of the other person. He's such a jerk. I can't believe he's doing this. You know, I can't stand it, whatever. Keep talking until you can let go of the labels and understand the behavior. When I can say, you know, I have goodwill for this person, and right now they are behaving really ugly. And I don't like it when they yell at me. And I don't like it when she is attacking me with ugly words. Okay. I love her. I have goodwill for her. I'm not liking her behavior. Okay. Don't stop until you can get there. You'll know it in your heart when you're there. Secondly, do the same thing for yourself. See, the other side of this coin is maybe she has a good point about what's going on. Maybe she is really hurt about you. Okay. And when I do it for myself, when I look at, wow, she says my behavior was really rude to her yesterday. You know, my behavior was rude. I'm not a rude person. I did have rude behavior. Okay. So you do not leave until you are not also labeling yourself. Okay. But that you can understand your parts in this behavior. Okay? So you may be in the bathroom for a while. You may decide to put, you know, a journal in the bathroom for when you need one. You go potty. I have to go potty. Okay. I have used that sentence with 5- and 6-year-olds who were in the midst of being abused in their own home. And I've taught them to say, I have to go potty. And it works. Okay. So you take your red cape and you go potty. Okay. You dodge the whole thing. You let it go right by you. I got to go potty. Okay. Take your red cape and go potty. Now, the other thing that I want to teach you about this is that the other point that I want you to do before you come out of the bathroom is understand that you can talk from a place of we. If I talk from a place of I or you, it can be really assaultive. If I come out of the bathroom saying, you are treating me really bad, the other person's, you're going to activate their limbic system again. Okay? If you come out of the bathroom instead saying, we have an issue here because I feel really hurt by the way you treated me. Do you see the difference? It's now about the behavior, not the person. Okay? By the way, it's amazing what happens to the other person's heart while you get out of the way of God. It's amazing what happens. There have been so many times I just get out of the way and go pray with God and ask him to deal with it because, you know, frankly, my dealing with this person's ugly behavior is way above my pay grade. I can't do a thing about it. Okay? But I can ask God to. And it's amazing what God does in the other person's heart while you're in the bathroom. Try it. It's really amazing what the Lord does in that when you give him that space to work with the other person and you. Okay? So make sure you talk from a place of we, and you can talk from a place of we before you come out of the potty. Okay? So let's look at an example of this. John the Baptist has known Jesus his whole life. Jesus was his cousin. John the Baptist sent his disciples to go follow Jesus instead of him. He said, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He says, I'm not worthy to untie his shoes. John the Baptist knew who Jesus was. And he had a secure attachment with Jesus. And then Herodias danced before Herod and asked for John the Baptist's head on a platter as her reward. And John the Baptist is now sitting in prison awaiting his beheading. And boy, if there's ever a time where your secure attachment is going to fail and you're going to drop to baby crawling steps, it would be that. Fear, arousal, confusion, desperation, all those limbic system emotions are, man, really high. I don't blame him for being in that position and being and what he said. But here's what John the Baptist said to his disciples to go tell Jesus. He said, tell him, are you the one, or should we look for another? Amazing statement. Are you the one, Jesus, or should we look for another? What John said in that statement is just so poignant. The one is the label. Jesus, I have a label of you, of what you're supposed to do for me, about what's supposed to be going on, about this whole crazy situation where I am in prison, going to be beheaded. All of this is a label that I am living in. So Jesus, are you the Savior? Are you the one that's going to fix this? Or should I look for somebody else? At that point, his secure attachment is gone. Okay? He's in a place of fear, arousal, desperation, intensity, disillusionment, bugged at Jesus, because Jesus isn't the label that John the Baptist thought he should be. And I'm really sad for John the Baptist in that place. Have you ever been in that place before? Have you ever been there? I sure have. Ooh. And you know what? I think one of the worst things about being in that place, after doing so much work myself on secure attachment, was how disappointed I was in myself that I dropped to the ground and started crawling like a baby again. That was so disappointing to me. I thought I had become securely attached and, all that. And here comes this situation, and I just dropped to the floor and began crawling again. That was one of the worst parts about it for me, in a place of desperation. In fact, for months and months, all I could say was, I trust you, Jesus. Every time it all came up, I trust you, Jesus. I trust you, Jesus. Now, what that meant to me was this. When this happened to Jesus and John the Baptist, Jesus didn't get all butthurt. He didn't get all offended. He didn't get all bugged. He didn't stand in front of that bull of John's who's going, are you the one, or should we look for another? He didn't run from it. Okay? He emotionally matadored John. He said to John's disciples, go and tell John, the lame walk, the blind see, the deaf hear. Go and tell John behaviors. Go tell John behaviors. He didn't get all bugged about the label. He didn't get all into a big old mess about the label. He let it go by. And he said, go tell John the behaviors. That's intimacy. And then Jesus said something really interesting. He said, blessed is he who isn't offended by me. When I have a label of Jesus, I'm not in relationship with Jesus. When I have a label of what I think he should be doing or not doing, or fixing or not fixing, I'm not in relationship. I'm in intensity. And my attachment, like we talked about last week, my attachment to him is insecure. It's down here in my limbic system. But I'm blessed when I choose goodwill, I choose Jesus for who he is, I hold on to that, even when I don't understand what's going on. Even when it seems like this is a behavior Jesus is having that I don't like, or why isn't he fixing this, or why is he letting this happen? Okay. I'm blessed there. Okay. And that place of intimacy will bring peace to me, no matter the situation, no matter the scenario, no matter what's going on around me. So, what does this have to do with feminine spirituality? I'm gonna have you sit there and think about that for just a minute. What does it have to do with feminine spirituality to have that I choose goodwill with Jesus, I remain securely attached to him. I recognize when I'm down crawling again and get back up into secure attachment. And what does it have to do with maybe my insecure attachment with people in my life who taught me feminine spirituality in some kind of really yucky way? You know, does that make sense? I'll let you think for a minute, and then what I want you to do is you guys get to all unmute yourself, and let's have coffee with Carol. Let's talk about what that means in your life, or what that has to do with feminine spirituality in you, what that has to do with who you think you are in your label or your behaviors, who the Lord says you are, who other people may label you as. And I don't expect to have all the answers for that one tonight. Also, chime in with any questions you have or thoughts you have about, I know I gave you a fire hose worth of information. So unmute yourselves and talk to me. Don't be shy, storm the grain truck.
Can you repeat like what you want us to share exactly? Sorry, I was listening, but I was also taking notes.
Anything you want, any question you may have about it, any way this has happened in your life, any way you want to you change the way you label somebody and instead talk about their behaviors you're not crazy about instead of the labeling of them. Anything that has hit you in this, anything you circled on your notes you were taking.
I can share.
Okay.
So I think what you said about the labeling and the behaviors really resonated with me. And I feel like
I've lost
I get
you.
really, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I realize that in myself, when I get really upset, when I'm in conflict, I get really angry. And I didn't realize that at that moment I was labeling myself as well, and taking offense to what the other person was saying. And in a weird subconscious way, it was reflecting the inadequacies I felt in myself. And so when I paused, when it was brought to my attention that this was happening, the next time around, when I caught myself in a discussion and I was getting mad, and it was actually happening when I was on the phone with my mom, and she wasn't listening to me. She was being dismissive, and it wasn't like in a bad way. It was just like, I think her mind wandered off, or she was distracted, and I was getting mad. And then I realized that at that point, I'm like, I didn't feel loved or like cared for. And so it was something, that insecurity about myself. And so I caught myself getting mad. And then I was like, I stopped and I was like, no, it's not about her love for me. And it's not about an inadequacy of my part of not deserving that love. It's simply that she is not present for whatever reason she chooses to be. And it really helped to do that, and to just think of it as like a behavior. She's not being present, and that's just the way she's acting, versus reading more into it or thinking like I'm unlovable as a label, or things like that. So I realized that in myself, and so I've been trying to get more into that state of mind where I just like pause and think about it, and like try to get out of the subconscious where it's not reflecting a label on me. And I found that I've gotten mad with people in discussions, mad less often, because I'm like, oh wait, it's not my issue, it's just their behavior, the way they're acting. And then it becomes more neutral. So I've been trying to practice this. I'm not always successful, but that's what's helped me recently.
That's awesome. That's like, when the kitten was tearing my hand up, it's nothing personal. Not about me at all. It's about the massive pain that kitten's in. My husband and I, when we first started farming, had gotten all these chickens. We love animals. And the neighbor's dog dug under the fence one afternoon and killed all our chickens. Husband was furious, livid, creepy dog, bad dog, awful neighbor. This is awful, awful, awful. We had dead chickens all over the place. And I remember saying to him, Scott, dogs kill chickens. And he went, you're right. This is a behavior of what dogs do. They kill chickens. Okay, nothing personal. They were being just how they are. Dogs kill chickens. And hurting people hurt people. That doesn't mean you have to stand there and take the hurt. That's not helping anything. But hurting people hurt people. It doesn't have to be personal. That was good. Who else would like to talk?
I can go. I did not like this discussion night because it made me feel things that I don't like to feel. But it's interesting because like just negative emotions, I don't like those. And just like memories and stuff. But I think for me, when there's arguments, I am very rational. I like to think I am, but like compared to the other people in the argument, I'm the most rational person. But also there's just this sense of like responsibility that I like can't let go of, because I know I'm the only emotionally aware one. So I have this like guilt and like, just like stress that I put on myself that like really brings me down. And I like don't know. I don't know. Because like you were saying, like the rational part, I'm like, yeah, I do have those factors, but I don't have the like, I don't know. Because I also don't take it personally, because I've worked with people with behaviors and I know that it isn't a personal thing. So I don't know what I'm asking or saying.
I'm hooked on your first sentence.
What
I
a
can't let that
feeling
one go by.
things.
Huh?
When I said I don't like feeling things, that
Right. Negative emotions. The memories that come up
Yep.
and create negative emotions.
Yep. What about it?
I'm just struck by it.
I also don't like awkward silence either, because it
I
makes me
bet,
feel
because
like
then
an
negative feelings and emotions
emptiness.
and memories can come up. I don't want to put you on the spot. Caitlin, I just kind of want to hold you here.
I'll chime in if you don't mind real quick. For me, I mean, I feel like the biggest issue is I feel like I get hijacked by that, the bottom part, when I get really like annoyed. And I guess my question would be, how do you control that? Because I feel like that can be, an issue, for me.
Good question, Jackie. First of all, pick the person that you get hijacked with the most. Make the two columns, who they are and their behaviors, the labels you created about them and the behaviors you created about them. Make one about yourself with that person, the labels you have and the behaviors you have. Okay. And then take a look and decide whether or not you can choose goodwill for that person. I'm going to choose to know that when they're freaking out, they are that kitten on the engine who's been all chopped up. I'm going to choose to know that that's who they're behaving. That's how they're behaving at the moment. That's not who they are. Okay. I'm going to choose goodwill. I'm going to hold on to that goodwill all the time. Now, that's not up for question or discussion ever again, unless all of a sudden this person became majorly abusive. Now, if the person's already abusive and you can't choose goodwill, because to do so is to put you in harm's way, then you're going to choose neutrality. So when you look at those behaviors, you go, wow, gosh, okay, here's the behavior. This person does X, Y, Z in their anger. Okay. That's not something I can manage or live with, or even go potty and get out of the way of. I have to choose neutrality. I'm not going to go into intensity. I'm just not going there. Okay. So you make a choice today. Do you choose goodwill or do you choose neutrality with the person? Does that make sense?
Can you explain a little more about when you choose neutrality, when you have to choose neutrality instead of goodwill, you can't have intimacy? Can you like unpack that a little more?
you remember trauma bonds are intensity places where we're bonded to the other person to try and get what we need from that person in order to feel loved. So we end up stuck in this place believing the intensity, the arousal, the fear, the heightened state of awareness is love. And that's not love. That's intensity. Okay. So when I realized I don't want to live in this intense place. It's a wildfire. It is destructive. It is trashing. I do and say things I do not want to do. And I become really clear, I will not live in intensity. Then with people who insist on intensity and insist on continuing to fight, insist on continuing to be the bull, insist on continuing, their fruit is such that I don't know if I'm answering your question, Becca, but it's like their fruit is bad all the time, okay? Just know, this person's like this, and they're not changing, and they're not doing anything about it. I have to go neutral, because I'm not willing to put myself in a place of intimacy and vulnerability, because it's not going to work. I can't be vulnerable and share my feelings and be in a place of vulnerability with somebody who isn't willing to go there. And then secondly, Jesus said, shake the dust off your feet. Go neutral. If they don't accept you, if they aren't there to have an intimate relationship with you, keep moving. Now, does that mean you divorce them or whatever, or get rid of your mother-in-law or whatever? No. What it means is, it may, but what it means is that you stay out of the way of what God can do with that person. You just go neutral. You decide, bummer, these behaviors are so much that I don't want to be around them. So I'm just going to not be around those behaviors. It's kind of like whether or not you like broccoli. You either like broccoli or you don't, for most people. So if you decide you don't like broccoli, you just don't eat broccoli. You just don't go there. Okay? No point in trying to make yourself like broccoli. Maybe it's changed. Maybe the flavor's changed. Nope, hasn't changed. You don't like broccoli. So I'm not going to go there. So I'm not going to choose broccoli beef at the Chinese restaurant. And I'm not going to have broccoli in my omelet when I, go to Kimmy's for breakfast. I don't choose broccoli. Okay? I don't have to be all bugged at broccoli. I don't have to tell everybody how bad broccoli is. I don't have to chew it up and spit it out. I don't have to be mad at broccoli. I just don't choose broccoli. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you just don't choose relationship with the person who only knows how to interact in intensity or like in an abusive way.
Right, because what would the relationship have to be? You'd have to choose an intensity or abusive relationship, or a codependent one trying to get them to quit being abusive and intense. And they don't, way above my pay grade. God doesn't ask me to do that. Way, way, way above my pay grade. I'm better off getting out of the way of God, because God can deal with it. I can't. It's like our dryer, our electric dryer. No, yes, I don't remember. Whatever our dryer is, gas or electric, it went out, and I have a really nice new one in storage, but it takes a 220 outlet. So we're going to bring it home. Great dryer, but it's not going to work unless an electrician comes to do the 220 outlet. How nuts would I be to decide I'll fix the 220? Way above my pay grade. Foolish. Okay? Way above my pay grade. I know nothing about it except for what the little round thing looks like, and it's going to cost me. Okay? In the same way, we have got to get out of what God is doing with the person in your life who is in that intensity place, in this intensity dance. Butt out. You got so much going on with yourself, you don't need to be there. Get out of God's business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And by the way, be accountable for somebody. No? If I have to, I guess I'll call my very best friend in the whole world and say, hold me accountable to staying out of the electric box, because I think I'm going for a 220. I'm going to make this happen. If I can't trust myself, I know my behaviors, get somebody to hold you accountable to stay out of God's way. Okay?
Yeah.
Who else has a question?
I have another question. I will have a question. From your experience in working with a lot of people, what have been some of the biggest hurdles that prevent people from showing goodwill to someone else?
So the biggest hurdles that prevent people from showing goodwill. Number one, the biggest hurdle is not having experienced goodwill in their own life. Not having had the opportunity to have a secure attachment in their own life. It's kind of like talking about Mars. If you've never been there, you know, it just feels kind of like out there and you have no idea. If you've never had a secure attachment where you get to be vulnerable and you are accepted even when your behaviors stink, it's just kind of all out there. What's this whole thing? I don't get it. Okay. So that's the number one issue, I think. It's just early in somebody's process where they're figuring out, oh crap, this is what I live in. This is how I live. How do I find a place where I can live differently? You know, how do I get connected to people who are safe? I have an email coming out tomorrow. It's day 2 of the challenge that talks about your water buffalo tribe and how to get a tribe of water buffalo on your side. How do you get safe? So number one is safety. I forgot the rest of your question, Michelle. What was the rest of your question?
That was my question. So what are the biggest hurdles that prevent someone from achieving or being able to show goodwill to someone else 100% of the time? And then I guess, like, how do you gently make someone aware of like an attachment style or like trying to better the relationship, so to speak, because it matters to you, but they're responding from a way that's, I guess, more labeling and defensive and unsecure. Is it possible, or do you kind of just like, I don't know. Like,
Michelle,
I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, it's only possible if you know more about their attachment style than God does. Then you go right on ahead. If you don't, butt out and let God do it. Because what happens is when we're trying to make somebody aware, what we end up doing is actually getting in the way of God making them aware. Okay, the very best thing you can do is butt out, stay secure with God, and ask God to figure it out with them. In family systems theory, the idea is this: the more you change, the more the other person has to change just to stay in balance. Okay, so if you just focus on your attachment style, you know, where you're at in all this, and state, and state goodwill for the other person, state behaviors and not labels of the other person. Just start living out of that place and get out of God's way. Okay? Go to some Codependency Anonymous meetings. Codas are great. They think God needs them. Can I hear an amen from any Codas out there? Whoop, whoop, whoop. And watch God work.
It's interesting for you to say that because when you were talking, the last thing that I thought was, when you're answering my question before, the last thing that I thought was, so the thing that I'm switching in my brain is like that that my whole life I had permission to like attempt to fix my addict parent. And it was like admired and like, this is a good thing. And I'm so glad you're saying something and I'm too tired to say something. Like no one ever said I'm too tired to say something, but the message was like, I'm too tired to say something. So glad you still have the strength to be intense with that person. And like neutrality was never an example. And so then now like doing the work that I'm doing with you, it's like switching everything about what I was wired to believe was the right way. And I'm like, oh, the control issues and the anxiety is like taking this place of like being God when I'm not God, and not ever learning how to relinquish control to God, in that place, understand or surrender to God and understanding that I'm not in control, and kind of seeing it as like, wow, I'm such a controlling person. And then that whole thing of like labeling myself, like I'm controlling, like, and it turning into like, this is a sin issue for me. Like, I just need to release control and surrender, to now like reading Bradshaw and understanding family systems theory and seeing like, it's not like, sure, like it's a human issue and it causes destruction because it's not the principles of the kingdom of God. But I never learned how to surrender or relinquish control and be me and let God be God in an intimate relationship with him. So as you were talking, I'm like, oh, this is just like a total switch of what was always like approved of in me or admired about me, to say like, oh, this is not healthy or sustainable for me as a person, and it's not freeing for me, and I just have to go there even if it wasn't the norm, and hope that person, like you were saying, like that there has to be things get out of balance when you change. So hope that something switches and pray that God encounters them in that place, or end up in neutrality and relationship with that person. So anyway, I just wanted to process that out loud.
Yeah. That's a great point, Becca. And the whole point is, even Jesus, when John the Baptist's disciples came and said, "Are you the one, or should we look for another?" He didn't try and fix John. He didn't try and fix them. He didn't get all butthurt about it. He didn't get all insulted. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the cross for you guys, and what do you think? And why do you think you should be able to tell me, the Son of God, how this should go down, or whatever? He didn't get offended. He simply stood on his own behavior.
Which
That's
I think
all.
is so interesting, because it's just that like perfect security in Christ. It's that same thing of like Nehemiah saying like, I can't come down, I'm doing my work right now. Like, I'm not going to come down and like insert myself in the drama that you're trying to invite, because I'm doing the work God's called me to. And like, when we're clear on our identity and our assignment, then it's not so difficult to disengage from that intensity place.
Yeah. Great point, Becca. And the other thing about this is, another really good thing to say is, this is above my pay grade. Take a look at your pay grade, what you've been trained for, how effective are you in changing the hearts of people, and pushing the Holy Spirit out of the way, and you'll do this. I got this, God. How's that working for you? See? But it comes from, if you think about what Becca was saying and Caitlin was saying, it comes from a place in childhood where you had this inflated sense of being the savior of your family, or doing everything, being the one who doesn't get bugged while everybody else is, roll around in a fight on the ground, or being the one who says the hard things, or the one who, it's an inflated sense. It's almost like a martyr complex that I am this for these people. Okay, so how's it working? Does it work well for you?
No, just no.
No. So there really is a God, and I am not him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, try for a week to go take your red cape and go potty. Every time you create, there's an intensity going on. Take your red cape and go potty. And when you come back out, watch what the Lord has done. Watch what Jesus says about the blind see, and the deaf hear, and the lame walk. Watch what the Lord has done. The more you do that, the more secure you become in your attachment about who you are and who you aren't. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This might have like, I mean, you might have already kind of answered it, but so I'm trying to figure out how to navigate instances where someone says or thinks that they have the capacity to like for I guess intimacy in that context, but like through like all of their past instances that when you try and go there with them, it like just turns into kind of like intensity, I guess, or it just like never resolves healthily. Sorry, my dog's barking.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
Coda. So
I love dogs. I don't mind.
I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering how you navigate something like that, because I think it feels more like a trap almost, because they're saying one thing and then something else happens. I don't really have.
Okay. So they're having trapping behavior at that point in time. Is that correct? Danielle, is that correct? They're having trapping behavior?
Yes, sorry.
Yes. So they're having trapping behavior, and you can choose your behavior. Okay. When you stay in behavior and out of labels, you stay in a place, a frontal lobe, where you have choice, you have abstract thinking, you have an ability to decide something. You can go, oh yeah, Carol said that. Oh yeah, God has got this. Okay. When it's about behavior, you already are in intimacy. One of the most intimate places you may ever be with this person, which by the way, they may not even understand or know, is neutrality. That may be as close to intimacy as they've ever gotten, is neutrality. You may be the only person who doesn't run away or glom on. You may be the only person who just sits with how they are. You may be the only person who's ever had good, strong boundaries and said, wow, I noticed this is where you're at. I'm not going there. Okay. That's, you may decide to give that, or they may just end up noticing it just because that's the best relationship they've ever had. Does that make sense, Danielle?
Yeah, I think so.
So
yeah.
Label it as your behaviors and their behaviors. Okay. So I'm going to have goodwill for this person, and here's the behaviors that I don't like. Oh, they're doing that behavior of trying to attract me into fixing their problem, or trying to, whatever. What kind of behaviors does this person have, Danielle?
I think it's like in the instance of a disagreement or like conflict, it very quickly grows like volatile, and then it like 9 times out of 10 it's like becomes about, I'm like trying to actually pinpoint and think about it, so it might take me a second. I think it just always ends up being kind of mostly about their needs, and it's more of like an authority relationship, and so it's like almost like I'm not free to have boundaries because you're the authority figure. And so then it's like, well, I need to talk to you, like we need to talk, and stuff like that. But it very rarely, it honestly doesn't ever end in like conflict management. It's more just like them expressing what they need to express in a very like volatile way.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're gonna go potty a lot this week.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as you recognize, oh, here it comes. Here's the bull. How close in the ring do you want that bull barreling down on you before you decide to take your red cape and go potty? Okay. You're gonna go potty this week, and you're gonna come back and tell us how it went next week. And when you're in the potty, you're going to be in a place of oxygen flooding your brain so you can get back in your frontal lobes. Okay. And a place of you'll have to decide if you've become I don't know if you've given this place, if you've chosen goodwill for this person or just chosen neutrality. Okay. But certainly you're going to give that person over to the Lord right then. And the other thing about that too is you're going to, there's two sides of the coin. Whatever originally that person was angry about and charging you up with, you may have a behavior that is accurate in that. I think Misty, my kitten, in her horrific pain, I'm sure me picking her up made it worse. So I can cop to that. I can cop to, yeah, that, what? That's a behavior, not an essence of me, because you've chosen to give yourself goodwill, remember? So I can cop to that. Okay. So you're going to spend a lot of time going potty this week, Danielle.
For sure.
Okay. And leave it for the Lord. You look very brave and very resolute right now, sitting there.
Thank you, I think. I think that's just very like kind of back up against the wall type of situation. So yeah. I'm like, okay.
The back up against the wall situation is because you're standing there and you're in your limbic system. If your back is up against the wall, you're in limbic. Okay. Go potty. Get back into frontal lobe.
Yeah. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
What if they take you going to the restroom as you're being, you don't want to face that situation, or you're avoiding?
Yeah, or as abandonment.
Yeah. Like you.
How often does it happen in your life, Albie, that when you say I have to go potty, somebody gets insulted and hurt and finds it abandoning of them?
Well, let's say it's in a heated situation, and then at that moment you can't think, and you're like, well, I gotta go potty. And they're like, wait, we're trying to fix something right now, and you're leaving situation.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Where they don't let you go potty?
Yeah.
That was my question as well, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then back up and go potty a lot earlier in the conversation. Number one. Or number two, wow, go ahead and just let loose on the floor and pee. I think if you do that once, they'll get the hint. That is extremely enmeshed. That somebody says, no, you can't go potty. You are staying here and dealing with this.
Okay. It's just that I guess like I don't know. I see like the other, I want to say people in general, because there's several, can have a very attitude, like a bull in a china, and I'm very passive aggressive. Like, I can't deal with it right now. I have to leave and deal with it later, but then I never deal with it.
Okay.
But I guess that it's two personalities that clash.
Okay.
So
So they're taking it.
then,
So really, okay, Albie, so I have a question for you. How much of the time has it been that you've been passive aggressive and ditching out, I'm out of here, drop the mic, out of here? And how many times has it been that you really have said, gosh, I got to go potty? Can we put this on hold for a minute? I got to go potty. Really?
well, see, it hasn't happened anymore. It's something that has happened. That's why I'm asking. That's why I asked the question, like, okay, so what if you're in that situation where tensions are, like, it's, you have to address that right there and then, but you can't process it. You can't think. So you need a timeout, right? So you need to go potty and go think. But that person needs to address it there and then. If you don't address it there and then they don't want to talk about it anymore. It's done and over with. And you never really get a chance to go back and talk about it.
Okay, so you're being held hostage.
Yeah.
Because it's now, you talk about this now, or you don't talk about it ever.
Yeah, pretty
right?
much.
Okay, so I'd say number one, when things are going well, remember the goodwill columns. Number one, decide if this person is a neutral. If this person is going to hold you hostage to getting into a place of intensity, or abandons you, that, man, who needs enemies when you got friends like that, right? So decide whether or not this person is a neutral. It may be that right now in their life, God's working on them, and at the moment, they just got to be a neutral. Okay? Even if it's somebody really close, like your spouse, or your mother-in-law, or your mother, or your sister, or you can live in peace in neutral. You just don't go there. Okay.
Yeah.
So it maybe the person is not a person you can actually work with right now, that they have to go into neutralville. Okay. So what you do is when things are calm, or if you know that it's going to be a tough discussion, write it down and hand it to them. You're going to set up your boundaries in I statements. I realize, Susie Q, that when we start getting into intensity, nothing good comes of it for me. And I even end up hurting you. And I don't like that. So I'm just going to tell you right now that I'm going to have to just kind of put it on hold. I'm not abandoning you. I'm not passive aggressively kicking you. Because you don't sadistically get to keep me in a damaging place. I'm just going to take a break for the sake of us. And when I do that, I'm just going to go potty. And I need you to understand, I'm not abandoning you. I'm not kicking you. And by the way, I've done that in the past. And getting so angry and so passive aggressive, I've dumped you in the middle of it all, like a big middle finger. And I'm not doing that. And I don't want to do that to you, but that's really where I end up going when I'm in that part of my brain. So I just want you to know, so your heads up, that's how I'm going to manage things right now. What is that like when I tell you that, Albie?
Well, the thing is, I do that. I do write letters, but I never deliver them. And then I just get over it because I poured my heart and soul into that letter. And then afterwards, I'm like, this is not me. I'm not a person that when I talk, I really choose my words so I do not hurt the other person, because words to me is like a paper. If you crumple it, you can never uncrumple it again.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much you say I'm sorry and whatnot, you just can't take those words back. So I really choose my words wisely, because I know that just because we're in a fight right now doesn't mean we're going to be in a fight later. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, like, I could be passive aggressive. So I don't deal with that moment, but then I tend to not deal with it after. And so that person wants to deal with it now because they want to, get on with it. But I'm like, I need to process, I need to think, I don't want to say things that I don't mean to say,
And so I'm confused what the problem is.
I guess my point is that I don't end up delivering those letters. I do write it, and then afterwards I just rip it because I turned it. I guess me writing it is like turning it over to God and like, okay, God, this is how I feel. But now that I've put it in paper and I said exactly how I feel, not holding back. Now I can finally forgive. Now I can move on. Now I can be at that place where I turn it over to you, God, and I'm not at that hurt place, and I can move on with my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. What you just
But I
did
don't
was
deliver it.
metabolize an emotion. That's awesome.
So that's okay, even like for me not to deliver the letter. I can write it, but I don't have to give it to them.
Yeah. Why? If it is resolved in you, then how come you would give it to them?
Okay, I just thought that I would still have to. Okay, because so
What
they
would
can
you
know.
think would be your reason to give it to them?
Still don't feel the resolution, the resolve, even if
So
I
they
wrote it
don't
like.
feel the resolution. So they feel the resolution of it.
Yeah. So I like, let's say if I wrote I feel like when I should give the letter is when I wrote the letter, but I still feel like I need them to read it. If I write it and I don't need them to read it, then that's fine. But if I still need them to read it, then deliver it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because intimacy is into me see, to be seen and known and heard and accepted in my messiest places. So sometimes you need to show your messy place to a safe person in order to be able to move on. Sometimes, you don't need to show your messy place. You saw it, God saw it, you're cool with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. But do you think that for the other person it feels like passive, like I'm putting it under the rug because I didn't really deal with it with them. I kind of just dealt with it with God.
Who did that in your life as a child, Albie?
My dad.
Your dad. And when he
Yeah,
would
my
just,
dad's.
okay, so he would just deal with it with God. And what was your relationship like with him?
No, I would deal with it with God when, well, we
Oh,
both, I
okay.
guess.
Okay, so it wasn't about your dad doing this. You did this with your dad.
And vice versa.
Okay.
I, I guess I learned it from him because he never dealt with it. He always like, well, you know, I'm gonna pray about it, or I'm gonna take it to God, or I'm gonna, we'll see what God decides, or whatever. Like he always like goes and prays and never deals with it. It's
Right.
always swept under the rug.
Right. And so you don't want to be a person who, if I hear you correctly, you don't want to be a person who in relationship stays on a superficial level by just leaving it all between him and God or you and God.
Exactly.
That's called
Exactly.
counterdependence. That's that third kind of insecure attachment where me and God got this handled. I don't need anybody else.
Mhm.
It's the most dangerous kind of insecure attachment because in that place, God's good, I'm good, I don't need you. And so it's really about coming to this gut-wrenching place that says, God told me it's not good for me to be alone. I do need you. And even just sitting in that place that says, oh, crap, I do need people. I do need safe people. I do need somebody to hug me. I do need somebody to be Jesus with skin on. It is too lonely for me to be here with just me and God, because God says, Pumpkin, it's not good for you to be alone.
Mm. Wow. Thank you. I never saw it like that. awesome.
You're welcome. You know, when we are so starved, within a few days, when we're starving, within a few days, our body starts eating on itself, on its muscle, and releases a hormone that takes away hunger pains. So, I don't know if you guys have all seen those swollen-bellied children in Africa, and they're starving, and they don't know it, and their body's eating on itself, and they don't even know it, which is a blessing in a sense, because at least they're protected from that awful hunger all the time. But left in that state, they will just eat on themselves. And the funny thing is, you can't just throw a steak at them and a baked potato. Their body can't tolerate big old meal. They got to eat some kind of gruel for a while that their body can start tolerating eating something. My hope for you, Albie, is that if indeed you're one of those swollen-bellied, starving children, that you start getting gruel here.
Thank you. No, I feel like I was probably, but I've overcome, and I'm no longer there because I drawn to the Lord. And I say, strength, give me strength so I can face what comes at me head on, and I can open up and not. I mean, it was hard, very hard to open up and not cry and not be vulnerable and that, but like I say, okay, Lord, I need to break with this chain. I no longer I'm not gonna do that, what I saw, and I'm not gonna mimic that and sweep things under the rug and not deal with it. I think I feel blessed to be in a new family, which is my husband and his family, but they're very strong. So I feel like I've been put in challenges where I can't sweep it under. You have to face it. And me doing that, me facing it, helps me to learn that I get stronger every time I do have to, go through a challenge at that and overcome. And, I see it like, okay, we're not going to sweep it under the rug. We're going to talk about it in a healthy way. If I do need a break, I will go say potty. I need to go to the restroom, think about it, analyze it, and then I can come back and I can say, okay, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going through, and work through it and move on. I have grown in that, but it was just,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Anybody else have a thought or question or comment? Thank you, Albie.
no, thank you.
I see sour, sad faces over there. Good question. I know Jesus says, can a bad tree produce good fruit? Can a bad tree produce good fruit? I know my fruit tree's in the back. I've got one peach tree that's like, I leave it because it's for shade, but it makes the most gross little green peach things that fall off. I have tried everything to try and help that tree. And it just keeps producing the same fruit. Okay. I also have trees, good fruit trees, that every once in a while there's some wonky looking weird shaped fruit on it. You know, one of the lemons is like, you know, I don't know, a double, it's a weird looking lemon. Okay. But it produces a lot of good fruit. Every once in a while there's something strange. Now, I do know this. There is a God and I am not him. There is nothing I can do to change my peach tree to produce good fruit. I know, I've tried. I tried watering it differently, trimming it differently, fertilizing it differently. I've tried and tried and tried. And nothing in, let's see, since when, how long have we lived here? Like 8 years? Probably 7, 8 years, has fixed that peach tree. Above my pay grade. If it's going to get fixed, that's going to be between it and the Lord. And so neutrally, I don't expect peaches from it. I ignore the little green peaches that come and show up and get hard and fall off. And I enjoy it for its shade. And that's how it goes with my peach tree. Okay. I don't get out there and try and wrestle it and make it do something else and be something I need it to be. I just go, wow, that's my peach tree. I can always have hope. You can always have hope for somebody. The best hope you can have for somebody is getting out of God's way with them. Even if you're watching them go to the depths of cuckoo, God uses the megaphone of pain to get the attention of his people. Don't step in front of that megaphone of pain. It's hard to watch. Sometimes it's better if you're not watching. But it's really about, it's not a thing I can do. And stop the trauma bond of intensity of trying to get that from them, which only keeps them enmeshed and entrenched in their behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it makes sense in terms of relationship. I think it's, for me, I was asking also more in terms of being able to judge when it's you know, like when it's somebody doing something that was wrong in one instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus like a behavioral pattern and they're just a bad tree. But I think the peach tree example kind of like answers that. Like, oh, every once in a while, if you get a bad fruit, doesn't mean it's a bad tree. It's just like, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think.
And Glennis, you just live your life based on the fruit. You don't even have to, you don't have to decide about the tree. You don't have to label the tree. You can just pick up the fruit and go, wow, this has a worm in it. I'm not eating it. Well, this one's green and hard. Nah. Wow, this one looks pretty good. Huh. I think I'll make pink lemonade with this one. Okay. You're looking at behavior and you get to decide behavior. That's frontal lobe. That's abstract thinking. That's logic. Okay. Limbic back here wants you to sit there and go, this is a bad tree, forget it. Or this is such a good tree and I just have to ignore it and eat the green peach. No. Limbic wants you to label. You don't have to label. You're not 3 anymore. You get to choose behaviors. And you don't have to be around, you know what? You don't have to be around a behavior you're not liking. It doesn't really matter if there's no label about it. I just go, you know, and if it ends up day after day after day, all I'm getting is green peaches, I just might decide to move on to a place where there's really nice, ripe, juicy, wonderful ones. Does that make sense, Glennis?
Yeah, that makes sense.
When we're trying to label people, we're down in our limbic system. We're down in fight or flight. We're trying to predict whether or not it's dangerous for us there. We're trying to predict whether or not the other person is a good guy or a bad guy. We're trying to predict all this stuff. You don't need to predict all that. You know, it's like if you're trying to label broccoli, just taste it. You don't have to, you know, label it or make it, you know, when you taste it, you go, oh yeah, this is broccoli. I don't like broccoli. Keeps you in your frontal lobes. Anybody else? Probably have time for one more question or thought. Or comment on this kind of format. You can comment on this format too if you're liking this or not.
I feel like it really relates to boundaries too. Because like once you realize that, I guess, like someone's behavior isn't like healthy or whatever, you're being like neutral is a boundary, for example.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. That's exactly right. Neutral is a boundary. Okay, you guys, shoot me an email, 714-CAROL, CAROLE, @gmail.com. Send me an email and tell me how this is going for you, if you like this format or not. Is it working? Is there a question you wanted answered but didn't want to say out loud? How often you're in the potty? I am first and foremost dedicated to your anonymity and your privacy. You can tell anybody you want what you said about your mother-in-law on this, but I'm not going to have your mother-in-law find out by getting on this, right? That is a something I take very seriously. No, so 714, the numbers 714 CAROLE @gmail. So, okay, you guys, get on your red capes, put a pencil and a journal in your bathroom, and get ready to go potty. Have a great week, my fellow Matadors. Bye-bye.